All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to the 74th episode of the Get Down podcast. My name is Cream.
Gary W. here.
Gary, we're going to get right into it, and we're going to start with a Cream rant. Now,
Love these.
As we were preparing for the podcast this morning, I said, Gary, I got a rant to start the show. And I was like, do you want me to tell you what it is, or do you want me to just get into it?
No, I like the natural reaction because it's more genuine, and I just want to have fresh thoughts as you're going here.
Yeah, I think when I give you the rant earlier before we start recording, it like takes a little bit of the vigor off of it when I do it.
Well, what happens is because then I have like 3 comments that are immediate. So
So this is something that we've talked about offline and we've talked about with some of our guys, but something that drives me absolutely crazy is DJs, when you're downloading music and then you actually go play the music in the club, constantly, like when the track is smashing red within Serato. And I know instantly when someone plays the song, if it's smashing red within Serato. So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, when you download a song and you bring it into Serato and you listen to it and you put your cue points, there's a little volume meter for that particular song. And sometimes based on how it's recorded, it's smashing red. And if you have a good ear, you should hear that it's smashing red and then go adjust the volume within Serato so that it's not smashing red. So when you play it in a club environment, it's not limiting. It's not peaking, you know?
Right.
And I feel like no one ever does it because all weekend, this weekend, I'm out hearing other DJs play and I'm like, yo, this sounds fucking terrible. And like, we're on a system that's good, you know, it's a good system. And then I look into Serato, I'm like, well, yeah, they never adjusted the volume. And like, it's such a simple thing that everyone, as you're downloading and organizing music, you need to do it. You have to do it. And if you don't recognize that you're smashing and it sounds like shit, then maybe you shouldn't be DJing because you should be hearing that. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I can hear it immediately when I'm playing a track and I'm like, well, I got to bring this down. And then I always have that nervous feeling because that I'm going to drop the volume too much. It's going to like cut the volume completely out.
Like as you're DJing, you're saying, or
yeah, as I'm DJing, I'll adjust it because like you could just tell, or I could tell it'll bother me, you know? So
I do that occasionally too. But like I said, I try to do it as I'm downloading and organizing.
You should be doing it while you're downloading and organizing. But if you do catch one of your tracks being extreme while you're DJing, you can just adjust it on the fly. Which like I said, is a little nerve wracking because you can move it in the wrong direction and you can slam it even more, or you could cut it completely out.
Right. Like if you're using the trackpad, you could really lower it way too much. You're like, oh shit, now you can't even hear it.
That's how I'm doing it because I don't know. There's probably a shortcut in being able to do it via the keyboard, but I always do it with the mouse. Pressing it and then just holding it and adjusting the volume down. I've also had it jump on me at home, never in a live environment, and being like, "Oh shit!" Like scared the hell out of me. But yes, you can tell. You should be able to tell. If you can't tell, then like you said, like I don't know, DJing might not be your profession because your ear's not that good.
Yeah,
because it's that your bass usually crackles a bit, and your mids sounds awful.
Yeah, they're like ear piercing.
Right. There's one DJ that I can think of that we have that slams their mids, and I know that his are too high.
Well, that's the next part of this. That's the next part of this rant. Because equally important from not smashing the track in your Serato is not smashing the EQ to a point where your mids and your highs are like past 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. Like, there's days where I walk into venues and I'm like, who the fuck DJ'd here last week? And why is the EQ set on the mixer ridiculously? Like at 3 o'clock on the mids? Like, what are we doing, guys? What are we doing?
If your system is tuned properly, which a lot of places aren't, obviously, but if it's tuned properly, you're at 12 o'clock on everything.
Between 10 and 2, I would say, is where you need to be for any professionally created song.
I think a perfectly balanced system, club system. I'm not talking about the song itself. If we want to talk about the song itself, like you could do the thing that like you do after you create your song and you drag it into Serato.
No.
And
I'm
balance
saying
your
like when you're
volume
DJing
there.
and you're in a room and you're just adjusting the EQ as you're mixing.
Yeah, it should just be, you should be straight 12. You should be. I mean, listen, you can come up in bass a little bit. Like, so I know like for Latin night, I come up in bass a bit because it just sounds punchier. It sounds nicer, you know? So for specific genres, I'll bump a little bit. Maybe house, like I'll come up to maybe 1, 2 o'clock. But I had an issue all weekend at 2 separate venues that actually 3 separate venues that instead of going into the red and being quote unquote loud enough for the crowd, I just kept it under red just so the sound stayed good.
Yeah.
I went out to go to the bathroom the one night at the one venue and my front was like low. I was like, I don't know why the front's low. And I'm telling management, I'm like, the front's very low. I know it's supposed to be lower than the dance floor because that's the whole point, is to have the bar lower than the dance floor, but it's still a nightclub is what I said. I was like, you're a nightclub. This should be loud. There's no reason for it to be low in the front. And like your dance floor should be to the point where you can have a conversation, but like you can feel the music. It wasn't like that. But I said, I'm not going into the red. And I see all of these Instagram videos and these TikTok reels and whatnot of people slammed in the red. It's the first thing I look at when you show a DJ video on any kind of social media. I look at where their meter's at, and it's always slammed in the red. No shit, stuff's blowing out. No shit, the sound needs to be tuned every 3 weeks because you're fucking the system. And you know what? Just show management, pull your levels down, and just show management that, hey, your shit's fucked up. It's not me. You know, so now if you want to have a nightclub, like you want to call yourself a nightclub, right? And have like music that's loud enough that you can feel on the dance floor and hear well in the lounge area, then they have to fucking tune it. That's not my issue. The ironic part is the owner came down during my set and I said, it's not loud enough. And he said it sounded great. Well, it sounded great because every time you're here and see another DJ, they're slamming it in the red.
Yeah.
And it sounds like shit. And the minute that you get into that red area, you have distorted sound everywhere. I don't care how good the system is.
It's not just DJs either. It's managers who are somehow going and adjusting levels and adjusting amps and doing shit that they shouldn't be doing. But I also love how this started as my rant and now it's your rant.
Yeah, well, because I had this issue over and over and over again this weekend. And but that's the same thing. They can adjust and they can get as loud as they want. You still always have master control.
Right.
Because it's going to show on your mixer. So you have the control to bring it down. You have to be aware of it.
Whenever a manager comes up to me and is like, yo, turn it louder. And I'll be like, dude, I'm pushing it as far as I can push it. Like, this is it. And usually that's probably clipping red, you know, like touching it on the master. And I know even that is too much, you know, but you're right. Like there are certain DJs and certain managers and staff that don't give a fuck about that and just crank in the red, in the red.
It got away from me at Birch last time I played because the sound was so bad that I couldn't hear it from where I was standing. But then we did a walkthrough with the sound guy last week, and it was very clear as to why. And you can't blame the DJs for in that particular venue. Like you can't blame the DJs for trying to like eke a little more sound out of the place. You know what I mean? Because there were just little things here and there. And they wouldn't know that unless a sound tech walked through with them, which they did. And, you know, they're going to fix it. So that's good on them for sure. But I know for me, like I said, I don't know if I said this in a podcast, but I was bitching and complaining that the sound was terrible the night I played. And I thought it was just me. And then I was cranking the booth as I always do. Because I have the booth is, you know, probably louder than anybody other than Angelo.
You don't even need a booth in that place. There's a fucking giant speaker right next to your head.
I know, but it's facing out. Like there's parts of the highs that just get missed for me.
I just think it's so fucking loud in there that I'll use the monitor, but not very much because it's so loud that I don't even need it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so anyway, like it's just something to be aware of while you're DJing, because as if you think it for you, it might sound okay and it might sound good, but you got to remember you have a booth right in your ear. So like, and you're controlling the volume of that booth, which is right on top of you. What everybody else hears is completely different.
Yeah.
So
it is good to go take that walk, right? And go see. I mean, you're going to have to do it earlier when there's nobody in the room or less people in the room, but it is good to get a feel for like, well, what does it sound like out there? I know what it sounds like in the booth and it sounds good to me, but maybe it doesn't sound good out there.
Right. I felt like it was low from the booth because I had just kept turning my booth all the way off just to see. And it wound up being low, but the sound quality was very good.
Yeah.
But that's, but if I cranked it a little more, we're going to get distortion. It was packed in there that night. Like that night I had to have a bouncer lead me to the bathroom and back because you just couldn't get through.
Yeah.
But when you're that crowded, your sound levels are going to be way different. That's why when you do sound checks and stuff, like you need to have so much room, because you have to take into account putting 500, 600 people in a venue and then how that's going to affect the sound as well.
For sure.
So like if there's like 5 of you in the room and you're doing a sound check, like it better be loud and you're still like well in the green. You shouldn't even be approaching the yellow,
Yeah, but how many venues is that like realistic? Not a lot.
Not a lot. Because what happens is that the venue's not taking into account that they should have somebody coming in to tune their system properly and make sure they have the correct amps to push the speakers that they have. Because oftentimes if you're not matching your amps and your speakers well, then and you don't have the proper speakers for your room, well, you're just going to have sound issues all day long. You usually have this in like bars that have cabaret licenses, bars that have dance floors. They don't usually instead of them just having like 415s in a room, they have like a bunch of those little shit JBL 8s. And you're just blowing them out because those are just made for, restaurants for like background music, not for DJs.
Part of the issue is that like owners and managers and staff really have no idea how to use any of this stuff. DJs don't even know how to use or tune or adjust amps many times.
We can't.
Like venues will approach you and I, and we're like, listen, guys, like we can point you in the right direction as far as someone that can help you fix your sound, but like, that's not on my resume. That's not something that I'm professionally trained at or feel comfortable even giving my opinions on other than what it sounds like in the room, We are
that Band-Aid, that quick, cheap Band-Aid that the owner's looking for, right? And they think, because you DJ, you should know this stuff, not knowing that it's apples and oranges. Like a DJ and a sound tech are completely different. The sound tech that we worked with, like he had his laptop out and he's got everything going digitally. And that's just how it is and has been for a long time.
It reminded me of like tuning a car, how you like plug into the computers and that's how you tune the engine. Like that's how people are tuning systems in the clubs and bars right now is through a computer or an iPad or whatever.
It's funny. This is actually older technology. I didn't even realize, because if you remember when Pasha opened in New York City, and they put in that state-of-the-art sound system, you were able to manipulate sound from like across the world at that time. And it was like mind-blowing that's what they were like, like our Ibiza nightclub can like adjust what's going on in our New York nightclub. It was like mind blown. But now that's to the point where it's scaled down to like your local bar that has a dance floor or a restaurant that has a dance floor can also and should also be doing that. So it's gotten far beyond the DJ's reach, and it's become more technical and digital, obviously. But I think this segues really well into, an issue that we came across a lot this week in talking about bar management and ownership, and just being aware being aware of the importance of maintenance of your DJ equipment. Right? Because we had various issues all over the place, with controllers, with, like we were just saying, with just sound, with subs going out at one place. And this is just
nightmare.
And it was one of those nightmare weekends. And it just so happened to be a weekend that I worked 6 gigs, a double on Saturday, double on Sunday. So I know a lot of that like fell in your lap, and it was just a lot. It was like every time I looked down during a set, it was like subs going out, or the controller's not working at this place. And it's really hard when management and ownership looks to us and be like, what's the issue? Like we just said, like that's not always like venues should have sound techs. They should.
Right, or a company that you work with, or somebody that you hire.
Somebody that can answer a question at 11 p.m. Not
right,
the
like
DJs.
This is partly not an issue, but being DJs and working DJs and also having our company, like it's very hard for us to be answering text messages at 11 or 12 or 1 in the morning about sound at another venue when we have 500 people in front of us and we're DJing a room. Like it's just not something that I'm okay with doing. I can't do that.
I answered the one manager and I was like, I have 500 people, and took a picture in front of me, and I cannot miss like a track right now. Like, and it was 10:15.
Yeah.
I was like, sorry, like I just don't have the time right now. I don't know what's going on with your equipment. Like you just had somebody in, you got to kind of figure it out. And then we'll address this tomorrow, kind of a thing. I know that's not the answer that they want, but you kind of have to, I think having these conversations with those managers and those owners about just having somebody that can really address your issues, that like really knows like the ins and outs of your system, is really important. I think if you're and this is not just venue management businesses like ours. Like if you're a regular at a bar, if you're a resident at a bar or a lounge, and you're like the point man and you play there the most, they're going to come to you probably when they have issues, right? It happened to me at multiple venues prior to Get Down starting. You're not always going to have the answers, and letting them know that, hey, maybe you should have somebody else on deck just in case I don't have the answers is a good way for them not to get pissed off at you. Right? I mean,
when did not having like an audio tech on the premises go? Like when did that go away? Now I get it from like a little bar, like you're not going to have a sound tech in the building, but if you own multiple venues, let's say, how do you not have someone on the payroll that handles all of your sound? Like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. I don't know. There's got to be somebody that you could hit up when you're having an issue.
You should have either somebody on call, like at all times, like I'm having an issue, because the issue it's not in your face immediately most of the time.
Right. It's not like the equipment shut off and we have no sound. It's a speaker blew out, a subwoofer's not thumping as hard as it should be. The highs are too high, whatever. Like those are the issues you run into. And it's usually gradual over the course of a month, 2 months, 6 months.
And then
it's not like that where it's like, what the fuck happened?
Right. No, it's those little things. And then those little things aren't addressed. Right. So if you blow a speaker out, well, now you're starting to push the sound more. So then you're going to blow something else out. Then you're pushing it more. And then one thing leads to 6 things because it's not addressed properly and immediately. And then you run into nights like, well, my sound just cut out, So it's gradual. It's never immediate. And maybe that's another thing, just letting places know that like when one thing happens, it should be addressed so you don't compound the issue. Because compounding sound issues can be disastrous and can cost you tens of thousands of dollars.
Right. That's where there's an issue, is because owners and decision makers see the price tags on fixing these things. And they're like, oh, well, the sound still works. Like we could get away with it. It's only one speaker, and they don't want to pay the money to fix it. That's always the issue, right? They don't want to pay the money to do whatever needs to get done that's best for the room. But I don't know. I guess we're biased because we're the people curating the music and playing the music and hearing the music mostly. And but it's the most important thing. If you're a nightclub and you're like, if your sound's fucked up, people are going to come there and they might not know specifically what's wrong, but they're like, it sounds weird in here, or the sound's hurting my ears. I see people's faces when people are running red, and it's like, you're hurting people's ears on the dance floor. Like you're crushing them.
Right. Yeah. It,
I don't think venues realize how like important it is and how this is not something you can sit on for a period of time. It needs to be taken care of immediately.
yeah, because when you get to when it comes down to it, only they know their bottom line, right? Well, a nightclub, 100% of your profits are coming because from your entertainment, and without your entertainment, nobody walks in the door. We've talked about this in the past. If the DJ shuts off, what happens to the crowd in a nightclub? They leave. So you should that's number one most important thing is taking care of the equipment that you have, whether it be the DJ equipment or the sound equipment. Now, in your like second tier place that is, a restaurant bar that has a packed house at night, 400, 500 people, like the thing comes to mind, like where Timmy Vu works, Cornerstone. They're a restaurant during the day and then they pack out 2 rooms. They want to make sure that their DJ equipment's going, because I can guarantee you that a good portion of their revenue for the week comes from their nightlife. They're not a nightlife place, but that's where their revenue is coming from.
Yeah.
And those are the places where sometimes there's a disconnect. And it needs to be explained to them that, hey, and I'm not saying Cornerstone, but I'm just saying places of that ilk. That it needs to be explained to them that like this stuff is paramount to the success of your nights. And without taking care of it, like you can have a immensely bad week in revenue if things go bad.
Yeah.
I think when looking at it as money for them, I think you have to spend money to make money. It's the thing that we always talk about. So just communicate with the venues, and they're going to be hard-headed. They really are. I mean, they're going to tell you, oh, well, that speaker's blown. It's not a big deal. Can we get a cheap fix for it? And the realization of that is that, yes, you could, but it's just going to compound your issues down the road. And it's going to cost you more money. So spend the $500 now to save, $1,500 later.
Yeah. Some of this is attributed to the fact that there aren't as many big rooms that are spending a lot of money on sound and have a sound tech. And there's more of these smaller rooms that, like you said, are like restaurant that turns nightlife at night, or,
right.
These multi-use venues that aren't necessarily nightclubs, but still have a DJ and have music. And like, those are the places where you're going to run into the most issues most of the time, right? If you're a nightclub, like if you own and run a nightclub, music is the most important thing. You're probably bringing in bigger artists and like, you're going to take care of that stuff. It doesn't always happen, right? But you would like to think that those places are going to drive the high quality, take care of your sound mentality.
Right.
But one of the other issues that we're running into is just like, there aren't a lot of people that can do this work, that are doing sound work and are fixing equipment and fixing speakers. Like, I feel like the pandemic happened and a lot of these places that were doing this stuff don't do it anymore, or can't get the parts, or are so backed up that they can't take new work. And I think there's a huge, huge demand for more companies that are willing to come in and do this work. So
the pandemic absolutely crushed this industry.
Shout to Class Kills, because I know they've been doing a lot of this stuff. And they've been doing a lot of their sound work on their own. And like, shout to them for learning how to do it and offering it to their venues. And I know like they've been doing a great job. So like, shout to those guys for sure.
I saw Chris and Kel over the weekend. Happy birthday, Kel, by the way. And I saw them over the weekend. We talked about it, and they said that this very thing, that there is a high demand, and it wasn't being met, and they kind of had to figure it out for themselves to get involved in places and fix these issues. So big shout, for sure, big shout to them for kind of being innovative and doing what they're doing.
But like, I can think of, let's say 5 places that used to fix DJ equipment, and 3 of those 5 don't do it anymore. So it's like, we have so much broken DJ equipment across our venues and just stuff that we own. And like, what do you do with it? What do we do with it?
Those places had been around a lot. So 2 of the places that we used to use, had been around since gosh, since I started DJing. And then way before that. So it had been around since like the 70s. There's a place locally that had shut down, not to Pastor music shut down, right?
Yeah.
My dad used to work there back in the day, and that like shut down. So like those like mom and pop type shops have closed up.
My dad used to take me there too all the time.
Places was great.
Yeah.
So when those places close down, like those sound techs, you know, obviously retire, and then there's no new young blood coming through. I don't think like places like Guitar Center and what else do we deal with up there? I don't think that they offer that service to pro sounds. I'm not sure about that though. And I'm sure if they do, it's astronomical. So like a lot of those places that have been staples in markets are just kind of going away. And obviously once everything shut down during the pandemic, like it was impossible for them to survive. Because there was just so much overhead there, you know? So yeah, I mean, for us to try to get stuff fixed right now. And then we have the supply chain issue too.
Right. You can't buy new equipment. I put the bat signal out. I call it the bat signal because I go on my Instagram and I put up a question like, I need to buy a Pioneer SRT 1000. I'll buy it today. And like people hit me up, or like, right. I need whatever. And people hit me up. And that's the way that I've been getting DJ equipment right now, because you can't buy it from anywhere.
Yeah, it's such an issue. And now several cities are shutting down again in China because they're having an outbreak, and this is only going to get worse. So it's really a scary time in needing DJ equipment. We were at a venue that had 0 CDJs. They just had a mixer. That was it. Like, how does that even happen?
I don't know.
Like, you need to have stuff on. I understand that if you can't buy new, you don't, in that particular case, didn't want to buy used, but like, you have no choice. You need something, just right. One. Give me one. I can work with one.
Yeah. Like DJs, you know, if venues have equipment and then their equipment breaks and they're trying to get you like bring your own shit, charge. You have to charge for it, because like, don't leave it there for other DJs to use. And if you do bring it, and if you do decide to leave it there, I would charge, and I would charge a lot of money, because it's probably going to end up broken also.
Yeah. Listen, we've had like Greg left his stuff at one venue for us for a little bit, and that was really nice of him. But like, it gets to the point where you kind of just got to pull everything out and be like, listen, guys, this is what you're left with.
You guys got to figure it out.
This is what you're left with.
Yeah.
And you got a day to figure it out, because it's Thursday and you're going to have 800, right, 900 people in here.
You have 6 DJ sets this weekend, and you have no DJ equipment.
Right. We've been nice for 6 months, you know? For us, I feel like that becomes a little difficult, because it's like, oh, well, you have 6 DJ sets and you need something, and they kind of put the onus on you. But then at some point, you just got to be not nice and be like, here, this is it, guys. I'm done doing this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, because I can't buy anything new. I can't get my stuff fixed if it gets broken. So you're leaving me in a really tough place. And I think that's a really easy way to go about the conversation, because that's exactly what I said. I just went over. I said, this is ridiculous. I can't do this. And they were like, all right. And the next day we had stuff.
Right.
Magically. But that's what you kind of just have to put your foot down once in a while. But this leads me to an age-old discussion. The CDJ versus the controller. Now, the reason I bring this up is because we had a couple controllers go down over the past month to 2 months. And I always feel like
there's always a controller going down.
Well, yes. I feel like there's always a controller going down. And my issue since the inception of controllers was, well, when something goes wrong, the whole board is gone. A lot of the time. Right? Like, sure, like a platter on the left can go, and you could still use the right platter. But like, I don't know. Can you instant doubles on a controller?
Yeah, no, I would assume so.
Would imagine you could, right?
Actually, I don't even know, because you're playing internally, aren't you, on a controller already with 2 working platters?
Right. So I don't even. So the point of this is that like when one thing goes wrong, it can affect everything. Whereas like if I have a CDJ and something goes wrong,
Right. You just pull it out.
I can just play on one CDJ and that's fine. I could DJ all the time on one CDJ. That's fine. And then like if God forbid something goes wrong on that one during that set, I mean, you got to play internal and that's fine. You could do that too. And that's always just been my number one issue with controllers is that just that like the end all. If like there's one issue, I can't DJ. Whereas if I have a mixer in front of me and a CDJ or something, I can at least get my performance going, you know? Because I've just now seen too many situations where guys just can't even play. How is that even possible? Like you can't play. Like you just showed up to work and now you just can't play because maybe somebody touched something the set before, or maybe, you know, somebody dropped the controller and you didn't know about it the last time they were out. And then like setting up and breaking those things down is like could be a catastrophe because now you're just moving it around. I've also seen where we've set up and broken down a controller at a venue that doesn't have a proper DJ booth, and it gets put back in the case, and then the case gets wheeled, and then it gets wheeled off like a little elevation in the venue, and then it drops off. Well, I don't care if it's in the case or not. That's
like
going to
every time you do that, right?
That's going to affect the controller in some capacity. They're not built well enough for that to take that kind of impact.
Yeah.
I don't care how much cushioning you have in there. Whereas like CDJs are built well, and you know, DJMs are built well, and we've used CDJ 800s. I know we get made fun of all the time. Those things lasted for 15 years, taking a lot of wear and tear. And then like so for example, let's talk about old CDJs versus new CDJs too, right? Like old CDJs, very basic technology. They don't have the features that the new ones have, but a lot of the issues that we're seeing come out of like the new CDJs in the like the 3000s that we have now. Granted, they get used 5-6 times a week in a nightclub setting, which so they're getting abused. But like the pads seem to go pretty quickly. But that's because they're just taking abuse. I realize that. But then you go on YouTube, and we're not the only ones that are having this issue. Like this is just common. Where then you got to pull the button, so the hot cue is what I'm talking about. You got to pull the hot cue out, and then you got to solder it in, and it's a pain in the ass. Chris Lead was telling me how to do it, and I said, "Oh, I watched the video on it, and Cream and I saw the soldering, and we're like, yep, no, we're out. We're cool with this, man.
Chris, can you help us, man?"
Obviously, he was like, "Oh, you know, I could take care of that. That's an easy fix." But like back in the day, your issue was like if you pressed the platter too hard and like you flattened it, you know, and then you couldn't adjust the platter properly. You just had basic technology, obviously, and as anything, you know, as there's an evolution to equipment and things like that, there are going to be more issues. Obviously, you just hope they're every few years and not, you know, every year. Because when we saw CDJs last so long, 10 years, people, I just remember when the first generation of them lasted so long, you kind of thought it was like the new Techniques 1200 where you can have them for 20, 25 years.
I bought the original like CDJ 2000s 12 years ago, and they work perfectly fine today. So this gets me fired up also, because with the advance in technology and, you know, Pioneer and all these other companies coming out with more and more controllers at lower price points that allow more DJs to get into the market, like, I think that's a good thing, right? It's creating some buzz around being a DJ and music. And yes, it does create competition and whatever. There's that whole conversation that's something else. But in doing this and creating these lower price point, none of them are professional DJ. Not one controller to me is a professional piece of DJ equipment. I don't care what anyone says. So yeah, it's great because it's allowed more people to have access to this stuff and learn how to DJ and play music. I think that's great. It's now allowed like these owners to be like, oh, well, I can go buy this controller for $1,000 instead of spending $5,000 on actual professional DJ equipment that is made for professional DJ. Controllers, I repeat, are not professional DJ equipment. They are great for your home, for your basement, for your fucking backyard shitty party that you're playing. They are not made for the club. Please, for the love of God, they are not made for the club.
It's true.
If you want to call yourself a nightclub and you don't own CDJs and a professional DJ mixer, you're a fucking joke. Period. Like, I'm fucking sick and tired of this shit. I'm so sick and tired of it. I walk into a club that has a fucking 1,000 people and there's a broken ass fucking SRT 1000. Like, you guys have got to be fucking shitting me. I watched Funkmaster Flex play on a broken SRT 1000 at a nightclub. It was fucking mind blowing to me. Are you guys serious? Are you guys serious?
Yeah, the fact that Pioneer snuck their way into letting the SRT become the industry standard. Controller and industry standard should never be in the same sentence.
Is it an industry standard? I just think that owners are cheap and don't want to spend money for the actual DJ equipment and don't understand the difference. And they just buy the controller that's going to break in 6 months of regular DJ use, because they all fucking break. Every single one of them that I've ever owned, that I've ever used, they all break.
I think that DJs, it's our responsibility to stop suggesting, sorry, I had somebody like come in my backyard here, like waving me down, which was super weird. He's been ringing my doorbell. I have no idea. He has no idea what I'm doing. Anyways, so I think that our responsibility as DJs is to stop suggesting controllers as a reputable piece of equipment for the nightclub. Just stop doing it. When they come to ask you, what do you need? Don't say a controller. Say, I need a DJM mixer and CDJs. I don't care which version of them that you get. Just get a version of them.
Right. Agreed.
You can get an old DJM. It's still going to perform better than your piece of shit SRT.
It's going to last longer. It's going to perform better. It's going to sound better. Now, what I always hear when I say that is like, well, does the average person know the difference? But again, no. Having a professional sound card and mixer is going to make your sound better. It's going to, your amps are not going to work as hard. Like, it's just going to be better. And doing all these things that's going to make your sound better, you know, better mixer, the DJ being aware of your EQs, having a great tune on the system, like that stuff all together is going to make a world of difference in the room, a world of difference.
What's the real appeal for a controller? Okay, it's all one piece. That's the appeal, and it's also the issue. It's portable. It's less expensive. So all of these things do make it more appealing to ownership and management.
The other thing that was more appealing at one time, which is not the case anymore, because the DJM mixers now have 2 ports, 2 USB hubs, 2 channels for 2 DJs to play. One of the issues we were running into was that when you're playing on a DJM that only had one USB port, it was tougher to switch over with DJs. And now some of these venues have 5 DJs on the card, you know? So like it would make it more difficult. But again, that's not an excuse or a reason not to have it. Your DJs should fucking know how to switch over. Like, if you're hiring DJs that don't know how to switch over, they shouldn't be playing in the room.
Right. So yeah, I mean, those are the advantageous features of a controller, but at the same time, some of those things can go against you, you know, such as something goes wrong on it because it's an all-in-one, something goes wrong on it and you're having a big issue and now you got to replace the whole controller to go send it out to get fixed. Where if you have 2 CDJs and a mixer, well, you could just send the one piece out that's having the issue.
Right. And
you could still function.
Yeah. Like DJM 900 original, not even a Nexus, 12 years. I've never had to have it serviced ever. 12 years I've been using it.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just, and now
guys,
some DJs will say, oh, the features. Well, how much in a club setting, like, unless you're extremely creative and you're one of these guys that like, that's kind of what you
go watch James Hype. You want to talk about features. Give me a break. I don't want to hear it. Give me a break.
Right. Right, because there's plenty of things you can do within the regular.
Use it for your
setup.
TikTok videos in your bedroom. All right, get out of here. I'm over it. It's so annoying to me because I just spent all day yesterday dealing with bullshit controller issues. Give me a fucking break. Give me a break.
Agreed.
Maybe this was the real rant.
I think we're just gonna name this one rant.
All right, let's transition. Let's talk about something a little more. We have been trying to pump in more like music talk and things that are going on in music. So, let me ask you the question. So we were talking before this again, and it's like, what's the last big hit record that came out? Like, is there one song that you have to play every DJ set? Like, there aren't any right now to me.
It's gotten to the point where the ones that I was playing, I feel like are played out, but still feel the need to play them. Right?
Yeah,
and
we
I'm gonna let
two.
you. I'm gonna let you name the one.
That, do it to it. Right?
Came out in August.
Came out in August.
Been playing it every set since August.
7 months ago.
Craziness.
And Pepas is the other one, right? That always hits no matter what.
Yeah.
June 2021. 8 months ago.
And one that I didn't bring up in pre-record is the ABBA track.
Gimme Gimme,
which has been out forever.
Yeah, and like the remix that I play is from like 2012.
Yeah,
the Sergeant Slick remix.
Yeah, that's been out forever. Made popular by Fallamore. So
even hip hop, like, there's no must play Drake record. There's no what's the must play hip hop record right now? Gremlin, Kodak Black, Pushin' P. Like, those are the two newest records that I can think of that they're not must play every room. They're must play rooms where you're playing newer hip hop.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's certain rooms that I certainly wouldn't play Pushin' P, but other rooms where I feel the need to.
I don't even think Pushin' P hits in the club, to be honest. Like, I've never gotten like a massive reaction from playing it.
I played it once and it fell flat, and that was the end. That was the end for me. That means, okay, this is not a must-play record.
I play the hook only pretty much, and that's it. I'm in and out.
Because must-play records, they're going to hit everywhere.
I actually like the Kodak Black track, the Gremlin track. It works. It's good. So, but that's not like a trans? You're not playing that at a wedding. I look at it like, what songs can you play in every single DJ set, no matter where you are, and like that's a hit record.
There hasn't been one. Do it too. It's Legitimate Peppers is literally the last two.
The other tracks that I could think of, like I was listing out like the different genres, right? So pop music, like Kid Laroi Stay was really big.
Yeah.
But you're not really, I was playing all remixes of that, right?
Yes.
ABCDEFU has been hitting really hard, but again, I have a Levels remix. There's a Calling remix. There's like a million remixes of that. Dua Lipa, she's great. She's got a lot of hit records, but nothing that's like a must play every set right now.
I think the pop turnover is a huge part of this, right?
Doja Cat, she's been putting out hits.
Yeah. But also almost needing to play remixes of that song for it to hit the right way. Right?
For sure. Always a remix.
I've dropped out and played what's the big one that's on the radio all the time, which I actually want to Need to Know.
Yeah, for Doja Cat, you're saying?
Yeah. I've played Need to Know, the original, a lot, and didn't garner much. It got people moving, but it didn't garner a reaction, as a must-play DJ record.
Yeah.
You know what's weird? Just real quick about that, and I meant to ask you this offline, so I might as well do it now. That track is not on any record pool. Not zero.
Scooter hinted at something that's going on behind the scenes. It's like one of those things that editors and remixers are not really talking about because it can only hurt our situation.
Okay.
But there are certain higher ups, we'll call it, that aren't allowing things to happen.
Okay.
I'm going to be very vague about it.
Yeah. I went to look for like an intro version of that, of the original and or the acapella, and it was nowhere. And I'm like, this is the weirdest. It's the first time that I've ever encountered that, I mean, I guess I went to dig deep. I'm like, all right, it's not here. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to go here and I'm going to go here because it gets requested in one of my venues a lot. And I'm just like, shit, it's just not anywhere. And I have a feeling that's the same issue that came along with one or two of I lost like a couple major remixes that I had on my a couple of my older computers, and for whatever reason, it's gotten erased. And I went back to find it. You just can't find them anywhere. It's obviously a higher up thing.
There's reached the point now where I am sending DMP edits and some of them are not being posted, whereas generally they post every one of my edits. And it's not because the quality is not up to par.
Right. Interesting. So yeah, that was just
hopefully that gets figured out at some point soon, but it's been going on for a good, 4, 5, 6 months now.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Well, and then once again, I think, the Spotify and the Apple Musics of the world are dictating the pace at which there's turnover for pop music. And because of that pace, sometimes tracks that would be bangers and would be like mainstay radio plays just kind of get passed over.
Well, people aren't listening to the radio as much anymore. So like those songs that just get played over and over and over again that become like the pop hits. I don't know. When's the last time you listened to like terrestrial radio? I couldn't tell you. At no point am I turning on even Hot 97, like, or Power 105. Like, I'm not listening to that. Rarely.
I'm not going to lie. Yesterday, I did put it on. I did put it on yesterday on like a 20-minute drive back to my house because I didn't want to listen to any of my Spotify music. So I wanted to see what was being listened to.
Right. But like, think of it as a 21-year-old person.
No, you're not. Do you even know what the radio is?
So it is an era of instant gratification. And I can listen to any song ever created in probably like 2 seconds by just going to Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. And so people are able to focus on their taste, and there's not so much of a what's popular anymore because everyone has their own taste and they listen to what they want to listen to. And listen, like TikTok is driving a lot of the music right now. So that's almost where some of the pop music is coming from.
Yep.
I pull from TikTok all the time to make edits and play stuff in my sets because it gets a reaction, people know the music. So things have just changed. And I think so much music is coming out and so much turnover is happening that tracks aren't getting that longevity in anyone's ears right now.
So I pose the question then, is this the reason why many DJ sets consist of music? Many DJ sets, a predominant set of music that's played consists of music that it's like 8 to 10 years and older.
Well, yeah, I mean, those songs,
like
the hits of that era are going to hit now generally, like there are timeless records. They're going to hit no matter what. Look at ABBA, Gimme Gimme. That's a 70s song that's hugely popular in 2022.
But I'm wondering if, you have fads and whatnot because of TikTok and you've always had fads and whatnot. But like, if like half of your set consists of old music, like real old music that's 10 years and older, do the songs of today have longevity in where 10 years from now you're going to play those songs still in nightclub settings?
I think there are songs that are doing that, but I think the point of this conversation that there are a lot less songs that are in that.
Right.
Like, what's the last EDM hit record? Like, Do It To It's One, right? But that's like tech house. That's not like main. I don't know.
That's a house record.
Head and Heart was one that
I
can name that in the last couple of years of like huge must play every set.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Do It To It, Head and Heart, whether it's EDM or tech house, it's house, right? It's still house music.
Joel Corey's putting out hit records like John Summit, but he's making tech house,
Right.
Tech house is the like popular thing right now, which I think
Do It To It did that.
Right. It's not, I don't know. I guess it's more mainstream, but it's not like the mainstream genre of house music.
Well, what had happened was, right? So in 2012, EDM became popularized by Levels and whatnot. And then that trickled into and David Guetta was also doing hit records with bigger artists at that time as well, trickled into the mainstream. And now house, no matter what you want to call it, is mainstream. So like Do It To It is a outlier, being that it doesn't have your traditional verse hook. Like
Right.
we saw like the Levels was just a straight house record. So that was also an anomaly. So to have house records like that go mainstream, that's when you know those are huge, right? Those are genre bending and game changing tracks.
Can I pause you for a second? Like
Sure.
you just put Acraze and Avicii as like transcendent tracks that have been created.
Well,
And like we were hanging out with
why.
Acraze a couple of years ago, and he had no tracks out, was making like Jersey Club, and
Right.
now he's playing every artist is playing his music. He's playing all these huge festivals and shows. Like it's just crazy to me how, you know, one record or a couple records can do that, which is awesome.
So the reason that's going to transcend genre and just become pop and mainstream, you're going to see a lot more tech house become pop music. You'll have a Dua Lipa track be a tech house track within the next 3 months.
Yeah, well, you can play tech house at like bars right now, you know, not the
Right.
deep end stuff, but the
But
more
you
popular
couldn't-
stuff.
That's my point. You couldn't do that before Do It To It. You could do it in Jersey, no pun intended, but you could play some of it in Jersey, and you could play some of it in some circles, but you couldn't play it like at the local bar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some DJs would, you know, so I know there's some DJs sitting there going, oh, well, I played it at my local bar. You know, I mean, like across the board, like I could walk into any bar and play Do It To It right now, and people will sing it and bop along to it because they know it. So that's the reason why, like, that record's, that's a huge record. So maybe was that record so big that it kind of washed out other bigger records that maybe had come along within that 4-month span there? I don't know.
I don't know if it washed it out. I definitely think that it has kind of set the tone for what people are making. The edits and remixes that are coming out all have a very similar, like that's the formula now, right? Like, let's go take a look at the Do It To It formula and let's recreate it. Like that's what people are copying. And you see it in all the 2010 vocal tech house tracks that are coming out, and they're working, but it's just how these trends get set. Like Oliver Heldens and Chami set that like future house trend in 2015 or 16, where then the sound changed and everyone was trying to make that style of music. I think this Acraze track is doing the same thing now for house music, where everyone's trying to recreate that style and using that formula to try and make another hit record.
Yeah.
So,
well, we got a lot of legs out of that. Oh man,
I got fired. This woke me right up. Like we're recording in the morning today, and like this was an instant wake me up podcast.
I might get another coffee after this just to keep the day going.
Oh man. All right, guys. So I think we're gonna wrap here. Like we said, we've kind of adjusted our recording schedule. So today is St. Patrick's Day, but this is gonna come out next week. So I'm going to go through where I'm going to be next week. Thursday, I'm at Tally Ho Hoboken. Friday, Blue Midtown in New York City. Shout to Ammo and Dream Hospitality. We've been doing a lot more with those guys, and they hold some really, really dope rooms in the city. Blue, the DL Rooftop, obviously Harbor. So shout to those guys. Saturday, I'm at Lobby with Angela the Kid and So Wavy, which should be a very fun night. I think that'll be
a good time.
And then Sunday, Birch Brunch. We're doing drag brunch once a month at Birch. So I'm doing that, which was a really, really fun time the first time. So that's where I will be. Garrett, when are you coming up here next?
I will be up on the 31st. So March 31st. And I got a lot going on. Guys, be on a lookout. Follow Get Down DJ Group on Instagram, at DJ Gary W on Instagram as well, because I have a big disco funk, disco house party announcement that Kareem doesn't even know about. So,
wow, I'm excited. When are you going to make the announcement? I want to know.
It'll be out. It'll be out. Hopefully by the time this pod drops next week. So
awesome. All right, guys. I really enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode.
Absolutely.
Got a lot off my chest. This was a real,
real
therapy session.
Real therapeutic episode today.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening to this episode. My name's Kareem.
Gary W.
Peace out.
Peace, guys.